Quack.
Boo!
Quack. Quack. Quack.
Boo! You suck!
Quack. Quack.
Back up! This is not what we're doing. Boo!
Quack. Quack.
That's right. The intro is a little different than normal. I decided to add some booze, and I just want to say, how do you like it, Oregon fans? Huh? Does it feel so good when something you love, when something that's supposed to support you, boos you?
Yeah, why are you booing? I don't get it.
My friend, that game. Well, first of all, this is the Quack 12 podcast. 12-0. I am your host, Adam Chimeo.
And I'm Aaron Schroeder.
Aaron Schroeder of NASA, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube.
Otherwise, that's right. Just got indicted into the meta world of NASA.
Wow.
I'm in the meta sector. We are dealing with quantum time jumping. And Adam, I got to tell you, fascinating stuff.
Have you been
Heads up, that? Robots rule the future.
You've been taking that shroom tea again, haven't you?
Well, you know, mushrooms did just become decriminalized in Washington State, so...
That's enough of an answer, my man.
People are celebrating. Let's just put it that way.
Do you remember the game?
Yeah, babe.
The Oregon versus Cal. Golden Bears, the 1-4 Golden Bears, coming down to Eugene, Oregon, to Autzen Stadium, who were, the Ducks were 4-1 at the time. They go down there. It's another damn close game with another final touchdown from Anthony Brown Jr. using his legs, powering through again for the win. And yet Duck fans booed their very own team at Autzen Stadium on Rich Brooks Field
at the end.
In the middle. It was actually like when basically when those drives were stalling, I think on multiple drives.
Oh, sure.
On offense, they were booing Anthony Brown. Well, honestly, making some poor decisions, inaccurate passes.
Debatable. He won the game.
He did win the game. A lot of conversation about this Anthony Brown Jr., but one thing that we will not do on the Quack 12 podcast is we do not boo our own Ducks. I mean, what are we doing at this point?
No.
You boo your own team.
Well, here's the deal. You know, sometimes I will get upset with them whenever they're off-field shenanigans endanger the lives of others. But no, when they're on the field, they are our football team. They are our brothers. Unfortunately, there are no sisters. Maybe someday.
Nope.
But I will say, I enjoyed. I think that might have been the first time I heard a woman in the box.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, outside of,
and I was like pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, I forget that woman's name. Probably should remember it, but she does it all the time. I like it when she does it. Certainly better than your old Rod Gilmore.
Yeah, God, that dude is a snooze fest.
That dude freaking sucks. He was on a game this week too, and it sucked.
Yeah. But as you said, we won. I remembered it as you said it because he ran in the touchdown and we won. And up to the moment you said it, I honestly didn't remember all that much about this game.
Well, that may be more of a you thing, but hey, I'm sure you enjoyed it at the time.
Yeah, I did. Well, no, I feel like now I remember so much more. I was texting you through it because I had to watch it the following morning. And at the end, I'm pretty sure I was saying how as much of a nail biter of a game it was absolutely boring.
I got the text right here when you were rewatching it. You said this game is on the border of being boring, and it actually was kind of boring. I mean, like it was. The thing is, we've seen this game before this season, right?
Right.
We're playing down to our opponent.
It's every game. Yeah, we play as hard as needed to beat the opponent.
And sometimes it's really impressive when it's Ohio State in the horseshoe.
Yes,
but sometimes it'll be a winless Arizona team who's gotten just destroyed by everyone else. But for us, even if it's in Autzen, it's gonna be a close game.
Yeah,
it's gonna go down to at least the fourth quarter. Just like against Stanford, This one came down to another, potential game-tying drive that was aided by the zebras, by the refs, adding so, and like they weren't as egregious calls as, on the farm, but that sustained the drive. However, this time, I mean, what a thrilling end. Even if the game was a tad boring,
True.
the goal line stand.
Yeah,
and
baby.
Just to see like Kayvon Thibodeau, what he does when he
Dude.
first of all, he looks 100% ready to go. I don't know about
Yeah.
you. Yeah. He
Now-
looks freaking ready to go.
Was it Kayvon who literally like ran over a dude, kind of fell down, got
Mhm.
back up, and still had time to put insane pressure on the quarterback?
To take him down, really? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, of course
God,
that was
that
Thibodeau.
singular play, I was like, that dude's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I got it up here. A quack fact: Kayvon Thibodeau recorded 10 QB pressures, including 8 QB hits in just 2 quarters of play because of that. The targeting that was called at the end of Stanford. He missed the first half of this game, and it was just night and day difference when you got
Yeah.
him out. He's 100. Unlike against Arizona or something, like he is like 100%. Just right. I mean, blew over that tackle.
Yeah.
Still got to Garbers. There's also, on the goal line stand, there's when he like just rushes, like takes down Garbers, and Garbers like happens to do that miracle toss, which like kudos to him. He didn't do, I mean, Garbers is
Garbage.
Garbers is garbage. Well, that's what I used to call him, and I've upgraded him from garbage, certainly. Sometimes I just
He's now
feel bad for him.
He's fine recycling.
I will say Kayvon Thibodeau took him out like the garbage.
Yeah, the hardest thing about this season, I think, for me, is knowing that Kayvon is absolutely gone at the end of it.
Yeah. Oh,
I guarantee you, he's going straight to the NFL.
Maybe a number 1.
Fingers crossed, the Seahawks get him, because Lord knows, do we need that kind of talent on our line?
Yeah, that'd be great. That mean the Seahawks did pretty bad in the season, but looking like that's a possibility.
I mean, it's
but we're
coming,
not
baby. Don't worry.
We're not a Seahawks podcast. By the way, Geno Smith, we support you though. I liked watching him play. My man, we've seen this game before. It was a close one. It's getting to the point where I think no matter who we're playing, you should always take the other team, like bet on the spread for the other team, no matter who it is. I think we're underdogs coming up against UCLA, and it's been a while. It's been since Ohio State. No, I think we're betting underdogs, actually. I mean, it's down in Pasadena, so that makes sense a bit. UCLA, we'll get into
but
it later
Chip Kelly,
Hythloday, but yeah.
We all know how I feel about Chip.
For some reason,
it's done. He's fried.
You think
just like his favorite meal, chicken. He's fried.
All right. Wow.
He's a giant side of mashed potatoes.
Really? I mean, are you angry because he left us? I've never gotten this feud with him, but we'll get into it later.
No, I'm angry because I don't actually know anything, and I just need to have hot takes.
At least you're honest about it. If more people in America were honest like that,
bro,
we'd be slightly better off.
Yeah.
My man, there's been a lot of discussion. Before we bring on our guest Hythloday to actually break down this game, let's be real.
I've got one burning question that I want to ask him. I'm so excited to ask it.
Well, keep it in your back pocket, my man.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to get what were your thoughts on Anthony Brown? And we got it up here: 20 of 28, 244 yards, 1 touchdown, 13 carries, 44 yards, and a rushing touchdown. That's actually pretty dang good in my book. What are your thoughts on him?
I'm for him. He hasn't lost. I mean, the game got won. He hasn't lost my confidence. I will continue to maintain confidence in him because he seems, while I'm sure statistically speaking, he's maybe not the hottest quarterback in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He wins games. He makes enough good decisions, and there was an interception in the last game.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen anybody knock the ball out of his hand.
he kind of knocked the ball out of his own hand because he was escaping pressure and he kind of like reached out and tried to like balance himself up and the ball just kind of fell. But it was a fumble. So it's his second fumble of the season.
Right. But I trust his hands 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of people are having more of the problems with this like downfield.
And I don't give a shit about that because if you can continuously hit 10 and 15-yard passes, throw in a couple of 20 yards, which we did see, it's like, hey, man, that's enough for me. Keep the ball moving forward. Burn the clock. These are both good things as long as it ends in points.
Yeah, I can't blame him. I think Cristobal is certainly thinking that. I think he always is saying Joe Moorhead's doubled down to that Anthony Brown's given us the best opportunity to win. And, he certainly hasn't looked Heisman-like every single game or anything like that. But I'm starting to feel much calmer about it as Duck Twitter and other Duck fandom is just freaking out and blaming every little thing,
right?
Specifically Anthony Brown.
This is something that I find interesting, is that it seems like the public narrative is if you're not the world's greatest quarterback, then you're the worst.
Sometimes, I mean, fan bases certainly think that about their own.
And I'm like, give me a middle of the road quarterback and dudes who are guaranteed to catch it and a guy who's guaranteed to run it. And I'll take the middle of the road quarterback all day.
Yeah. Well, I would rather have Herbert.
And give me Kayvon Thibodeau in every position.
Yeah. Let's get Thibodeau as quarterback. Why not?
Yeah, I'm sure he's awesome at it.
Probably.
Anything that kid puts his mind to, he'll succeed in. Facts.
I'm sure there are certain Duck fans who are totally like for real, probably questioning whether we should do that or not. But let's bring in our dear friend, our forever guest.
Let's get into it, baby.
He writes for Addicted to Quack.
Never heard of it.
Oh, it's a wonderful site. You simply must check it out. It's especially the editing is really well managed, I would say.
I have heard rumor that it's got one of the best managing editors in the game.
I told you that rumor. That's right. But our friend Hythloday, he writes Duct Tape. This is a really wonderful article that breaks down each and every week of Oregon football. Coming out on Tuesdays. It should be out by the time this episode's out, that's for sure. Over on Addicted to Quack with some actual film breakdowns in there, like clips and awesome writings of exactly what you're seeing on the screen. It helps actually make sense of the game, especially if it's, kind of a hard one to swallow. That is our dear friend at Hythloday, Hythloday, the number 1. How are you doing, Hythloday?
He's well.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm actually, the more I'm seeing this Oregon game, this Oregon 2021 football game, which are starting to feel pretty kind of similar, the more I'm feeling a little accepting of like not getting as worked up every time. Like I was definitely nervous when Cal was on the goal line, but I'm getting more agitated with the I think unfair amount of hate being thrown towards Anthony Brown. You have any thoughts on that today?
Oh, well, I mean, I haven't come up for air. I as I think I've said in the past, I wall myself off from social media and message boards and so forth while I'm still doing film study and writing the article to avoid the following the taillights problem, or the getting punchy and like, I got to refute what the dumb people on the internet say, I just want to write a straight article. And right. You know what? I don't think I'm really missing that much by,
absolutely not. No.
I put up a funny tweet about Rolovich and Washington, and that was about it. That was I briefly put up the snorkel.
Yeah. Ex Washington State coach Nick Rolovich, right?
Ex Washington State coach Nick Rolovich, and
didn't get his COVID shot, and now he's out.
And there's some comment on Reddit about, oh, it looks like the entire offensive staff. It turned out it was only a couple of coaches, although fairly significant coaches, the quarterback / co-offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach. But anyway, somebody was joking around about like, oh man, the offense is totally, wrecked. All the offensive staff is going to be gone too. And a Washington fan, the University of Washington Huskies, said, boy, I wish all of our offensive line staff were anti-vaxxers too.
Yeah,
so they could be terminated.
Just do
and
it.
I thought that was like, Jesus, that's a kind of shooting the
Dark
moon on that one. Yeah, it was a little dark.
Dark times.
I was like, do you want them fired? Or do you want them to die? Like, anyway.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, that's Duck Twitter. I mean, that's college football Twitter, I'd say.
Yeah, babe.
Speaking of COVID precautions, I was at the stadium on Friday night. It worked out well for my schedule. I got in at 2 a.m. after driving down from Portland. That was a little fraught, but I had some good R&R watching the rest of college football on Saturday. That was very nice. And finally finished up my film study and submitted my article to you, Adam. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at it yet, but like,
no,
boy, I gotta say, you go to this. When you're watching the game live in the stadium, maybe other people are better than me at this, but like, I can't really tell what the hell is going on when I'm in the stadium. I can't tell if a run was a good run or not. Like, I can't tell how far he made it. They don't have the stripes, on like they do on television to tell whether he got the first down. I can't pick out the little orange, marker. I'm there because of the emotional energy. It's because there's like 50,000 other Duck fans who are going up and down, with me, who are screaming at the refs with
and
me.
You were leading the boos, I hear.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just so that, like, other than maybe going to war, there's no other experience I can think of in which you are in emotional unison with 50,000 other people, who are all surrounding you. It's a well, you got to take it in, a couple times every year. I think it's worth it. And then I go back and do the film study on Sunday. And I'm like, oh, I have a completely different perspective on this game now. Like, it's like 180 degrees different.
Well, what's funny is on Twitter, they sometimes have, like people at the game. And because we don't get the all 22 very often, they'll have someone like just on their phone, and they'll sometimes reveal it like, see, like, look at all these routes that Anthony Brown's not hitting. And that's certainly, partially true, but that goes around.
I do remember there's one play. I didn't include it in my article because I thought it would have been too familiar, but to put in, like, I know for a fact that he was missing this dude because I saw it with my eyes. ESPN's cameras didn't pick it up. And I was like, this is a dumb thing to put in my article. So I didn't, but it would
have been the inside scoop there.
I don't know, to that question, I guess, like, I think, like, the first line of my Fresno State review article was Anthony Brown is simultaneously the reason why the Ducks were behind in the fourth quarter and the reason why they won the game. And like, I think that line winds up being fairly true of this game as well. Like, I think the defensive performance against Cal was like exactly what I was expecting. I mean, like, that's Cal in 2021. That's Oregon's defense in 2021. Like, that result, with Thibodeau out and then having the dramatic, change in effectiveness in the second half, and then getting Swinson back. That's the other part of the equation that is a little overlooked. And it's not just like what those guys immediately contribute, but it's also, who they liberate. So like Adrian Jackson, for example, who had been sort of like pressed into service to play the Kayvon Thibodeau role, now doesn't have to, and he gets to play a strong side backer, because Funa wasn't playing. And like Jackson is the strong side OLB is like there's a check down. I'm going to put this clip in my article where like only Adrian Jackson makes this a tackle for a loss, like, because he's able to, because he first has to cover the tight end, but then as soon as the pass swings out to the check down, he has to come down on it. And that dude runs at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And, he's not that great at getting past, tackles, but boy, give him a running back in the open field and he'll annihilate that dude. And sure enough, he does. It's like a 3 or 4 yard tackle for loss because Adrian Jackson is there, and he's there because Thibodeau is back in action. So there's, it's interesting to note these sort of chain effects. Anyway, I think the defense performed, pretty much how I expected. I think that, Cal played the game I was expecting Cal to play in terms of them being like a really ball control offense. In fact, you may recall on this podcast last last week, I said exactly what would happen. I said that Oregon would be clinging to a 3-point lead at halftime, and the way they'd resolve it was to, run the ball, at them a million times, because Cal's going to try to make it a low possession game and Oregon will call the bluff. Pretty much exactly what happened. I'm not bad at this. Anyway, on offense, Oregon had a 75% success rate when they were running the ball, because Cal couldn't stop Travis Dye at all. They couldn't handle Oregon's offensive line at all. It was that performance was totally, and the only thing. The only way that the game sort of goes off the rails, it doesn't really. I sort of felt like Oregon was in control of the entire game, is that Cal's trying to make it a low possession game, right? And effectively they do. Oregon effectively only gets 8 or 9, depending on I don't know how you count garbage time, possessions. Normally it's about 50% more than that. And if they're going to make it a low possession game, and you're going to let them make it a low possession game, because the way that you're going to play them on defense was essentially to let them have their 4-yard runs, but stop the explosive passing, because that's the only way they're getting in the end zone. If you're going to allow them to do that, that means that you need to be really drive efficient on offense. That means you need to score like 50% of the time that you have the ball. And they didn't. They scored about 33% of the time when they had the ball. And I think the primary reason for that was bad passes that Anthony Brown was throwing, which he did several times, more than you would expect out of the average quarterback, or the average. Sorry, I shouldn't put it that way. More than a quarterback who's playing for a team of this level you would expect. The happy news, however, is that if you separate what a quarterback does into 2 different buckets, the one is throwing downfield pass bucket, at which he gets maybe a C- or a D+. Like, it wasn't great. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. And the other bucket is everything else. So like pocket presence, how he's eluding pressure, how he's scrambling, how he's operating the RPO offense, making the decision about whether to keep the ball or hand it off, run it, or toss it, all the Joe Moorhead stuff. If that's the other bucket, that the problem with Anthony Brown in the games against Arizona and Stanford was that bucket was also empty. Like, he was doing really poorly at those things. And the happy news that I have for you after reviewing the Cal film is that bucket is full again. He's like back to being the quarterback who beat Ohio State at that whole other category of things.
That's what I'm saying.
I think you were saying that, Aaron. And in fact,
it is really interesting. Yeah, I'll tell you this from the Duck Twitter I've seen, is that it is in such a frenzy against him that it is truly, there's quite a bit of people just being like, yep, this is another game in which he has just completely like killed this offense. But it was like, here you go. Ducks had 9 penalties for 82 yards.
Yeah, the penalties were really bad in this game.
Yeah, really tough timing too, and the 2 turnovers. Like,
they lost the turnovers 0-2.
Yeah.
Like, one of them is like they should have scored on that possession, and Chris Hudson just puts the ball on the ground. But they're in the red zone. That was a conversion over or actually, I think it was 3rd and 14, and he got 10 yards, but they would have gone for it on 4th down, or they would have kicked a field goal. It was definitely at least 3 points came off the board, because of that fumble. And then the other fumble was they were driving at the end of the first half. I actually thought they were managing the clock really well. And then, ball pops out of Anthony Brown's hand when he's going down. Yeah, the other thing that should be said is that he was facing this was probably George Moore, the left tackle's worst game that I've seen him play. He was giving up pressure all the time. You have to take that into account. And like, I don't know how that gets better. I don't know why Dawson Jaramillo wasn't playing in this game. They actually weren't rotating the offensive line at all. We had seen them get up to an 8-man offensive line rotation, but with Forsyth, the center, out, they were not playing Jaramillo, and they're not playing Powers Johnson in this game. They stuck with the same 5 dudes. And then on top of that, they're playing Stephen Jones at right guard, which I don't think is the natural position for him. So he was the other guy that I was seeing make I think he had degree
at least
theirs.
a penalty called on him at one point.
Well, there was that, but I just mean like their per play error rate. Like Moore and Jones had pretty poor games, frankly. In pass protection, in run blocking, they were great. Like Oregon's run blocking in this game and actually throughout the year has been phenomenal. And if all they do is run the ball for the rest of the year, like they actually probably wouldn't be a terrible idea.
Man, Travis Dye had just one hell of a game. You got to give it up for him. I love that.
I have to say, I think he did way better than I was actually expecting. I was kind of afraid he wasn't gonna be very threatening.
No, he's great. I mean, frankly, what we saw by the end of 2019 is that he's a better back than CJ Verdell is, except he's not.
Yeah,
he's just not bulky enough to like run through tackles.
Like
he only has one move to get extra yardage, which is that you can't touch me. But if somebody touches him, he's I mean, not going to go down immediately. He has some Yakko stuff, but like,
definitely.
He's not Royce Freeman. You know, when you were watching Royce Freeman and people were like afraid to tackle him, people are not afraid to tackle Travis Dye. No. You know, that's sort of the knock on him.
But it is fun to see him like how they're actually getting him some like open field too, and like had that's like 73 yards.
That's really the interesting thing, you know, going back and forth between the way that Oregon runs the ball and the way that Cal runs the ball, is that Cal's offensive line simply isn't good enough to do this is difficult to illustrate without a whiteboard. Read my article. I'll show you clips where Oregon is doing, let's call it complex offensive line blocking, where, you know, two dudes are blocking that guy, and then he comes off and blocks this dude, and the other guy comes up and does that, and Dye has to cut through that hole. But when he does, when all of those things come together like a magic trick, then all of a sudden there's nobody for 15 yards, and Travis Dye gets to run, you know, for 15 yards. Oregon's offensive line blocking is good enough to do that. Cal's offensive line blocking is not. When they try to do, and they have a few plays in their playbook where they try to do it, because I mean, they've got to try, right? But they can't. Oregon was just and really all teams, frankly, but Oregon in particular was just shutting them down every time they tried to do, you know, a more complex, open it up, let's get 15, 20, 30 yards worth of running on this play type of play. They just can't do it. They can't. On the other hand,
and their backs are great. We've
their backs are phenomenal.
Their backs on the show,
and they have a bunch of them, like maybe too many. It's weird. And Garbers can run pretty well. Actually, when we get to the Washington week, I've got a clip that I've been saving, which Garbers is running through like 4 Washington DBs. It's hilarious. But anyway, you have to wait for that one. All Cal can do is sort of the lean on you type of runs. Like if you know, if children were designing a football playbook, right, and they would be like, well, I have to run the ball. Okay, well, I have them, my big fat guys just sort of walk forward and push the defenders out of the way, and my back will run real hard into them, and he'll crash into them, and then he'll keep pushing, and he'll wiggle forward, and he'll get 5 yards. And like, yeah, that was Cal's rushing attack, and they were doing it. You know, they were getting 5 yards every play, but they were never going to get any more than like 5 or 10 yards, right? Like, and so like, yeah, it's really, you know, if you put them side by side, the sort of elegance of Oregon's rushing attack versus sort of the clobbering of Cal's, you know, there's a real disparity there, and it affects the way that they have drives. Oregon scoring drives are like 5-6 play scoring drives, right? Because they're getting explosive plays and chunk yardage. And Cal's are like, you know, 12, 13, 14 yard
grinds, dude.
And they're eating up all the clock, and like that's
the thing that had me scared too,
right? And it
watching
sucks
that
when you're watching it. When you're watching it, you're just like, get the ball, get it away from them, stop them. But eventually they do, you know, the drive peters out. They've taken 8 minutes off the clock and gotten nothing out of it. You know,
they only scored 17 points in this game. Yes.
Right. Which is lower than actually their average in FBS games going into this was 19.25 points per game. So Oregon held them under their yards per passing attempt average, which is 7.2.
Wow.
Oregon held them to 6 yards per passing attempt. Cal's rushing yards per carry on designed rushing plays was 5.7 going into this game. It was 4.5. You know, Oregon essentially did what every other team did to Cal, just better. Cal was a little, let's say, more effective, not luckier, not assisted by the referees. Let's just say more effective, was slightly more effective in the red zone than they had been against Wazoo, but about the same level of effectiveness as they were against Washington and Nevada, and and TCU, they were very effective, although I sort of think TCU is not a very good defense.
It's true.
Anyway, like essentially what I'm saying is that everything of the way that the defense performed against Cal's offense was like, yes, it was exactly how I would have scripted it. And the only thing that was sort of missing was that Oregon shouldn't have fumbled twice. Oregon shouldn't have had as many penalties as they did, and Oregon should have connected on more passes than they did. And all of those are sort of, or 2.5 of those 3 things are about the offense. And yeah, you know, like if they had scored on that drive where Chris Hudson fumbled, and they had scored on that, you know, that end of the first half, you know, drive, let's say they got 10 points out of those 2 things, and the final score would have been what, 34-17, doubled them up. Nobody would be sweating anything. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, football's just a game like that, in which, like, you know, one play, you know, goes wrong and you know, takes a lot of points off of the board and cause people to sweat. But if you back out and look at the per play efficiency numbers and look at like fundamental strengths in the game philosophy, you're like, oh yeah, this game was under control the entire time.
Let me ask you a question really quick. It's a quick aside question, but it's only because you said something that I found interesting. What you said, depending on where you start counting garbage time. Where would you start counting garbage time in this game?
Well, okay, so after so Oregon gets a drive. I believe they take possession with like 1:30 left in the first half. I can actually look that up. They got possession with 2 minutes and 44 seconds left, and so that's actually kind of an awkward amount of time to get it to have to drive 84 yards for a touchdown. Like, so at first, you know, they have 3 runs to bleed some time off of the clock to get it down to about a minute. And then they start throwing the ball and taking timeouts. Like, that's, you know, pretty appropriate clock management. And then what happens is, you know, they get to about the 40-yard line, they take a sack. And at that point, it's 2nd and 14, and it's 2nd and 14 with, I think, 20 seconds left or about that. And now you could arguably say this is a desperation drive when they take that sack. Now, they immediately hit a pass to Devin Williams for 10 yards, who, incidentally, Devin Williams, great game. Like, he was getting hit a lot. I really liked how much more they were using Devin Williams in this game. I really like that. And so now it's 3rd and 4 with 16 seconds. Like, in most other contexts, I would probably say that's a garbage time situation.
Interesting.
Simply because it's a non-normal play. You know that a pass is coming in that situation, right? That's sort of non-normal. Now they wound up fumbling the ball. Cal gets possession, you know, at like, I don't know, their 40-yard line with like 16 seconds left in the game. There's 3 more. They take 3 more snaps before halftime. That's clearly garbage time. That gets excluded.
Oh, okay. See, I always just assumed garbage time meant we're at the end of the game and this team has obviously already won.
No, well, it does include that, but it's also more of a catch-all term that refers to simply non-normal play. So if you absolutely know what your opponent is going to call because of the game situation, then that's not normal play, you know?
Right. Okay, cool.
And there's a couple of other things. Basically, it's not that those things can't affect the outcome of the game, and so therefore garbage is maybe not the right term to call it. But that, like, if you include that data in the data set when you are computing per play success rates, then you wind up corrupting the data.
Right.
You know, what I do is I save that data in a different bucket. You know, I save them in clock killer bucket and desperation drive buckets. And if I have enough of that data on a team by the end of the year, like there was a team a couple of years ago that for some reason was constantly in desperation drive situations, so much that I actually had enough data to run regression on it and calculate how good they were at desperation drives. The answer was not very good. And so it was Minnesota for a different project. It was not a team that Oregon wound up playing. I was just doing a side project on them.
Like the Golden Gulpers.
Yeah. Anyway, the
block.
It just corrupts the data. Like,
right.
It's you're putting apples in the orange basket. It's just It's not that is useless data. It's that data shouldn't be included because it corrupts it.
So obviously, the position that's scaring most of us, especially if you're paying attention, maybe more so than quarterback, it should probably, is the linebacker, the linebacking core. How are they settling in as of now? Because obviously we're still missing some presumed starters, but
it's
how are you
about the
feeling
same
about
as
that
when we
group?
first started seeing them. I haven't really seen marked improvement. Obviously Noah Sewell is still very good. He's
You
still
can't,
pretty young. Like, I see him make
yeah.
mistakes. But like, I don't know. It was interesting. They started playing Jeffrey Bassa, the safety convert. Like,
Mhm.
he was the guy who was in on the first drive, and like Bassa, like, he's fine. Like, he's not a terrible inside linebacker, but he's clearly a converted safety and hasn't bulked up yet. And like, there's a couple of plays, I think I put at least one of them in my article, where it's like he's in the right position, but he's going up against Christopher Brooks, and Brooks just runs him over, and it's like or like he needs to come down and hit that offensive lineman as hard as he can immediately to squeeze down the size of the running lane, so that the quarterback, when he's running through it on a keeper, has to take it at a different angle, and that way when the safety comes down to actually make the tackle, he's doing it having, with the quarterback having only gained like 3 yards instead of having gained like 7 yards. But he doesn't, because that offensive lineman outweighs him like 150 pounds, and he's like staring at him like, I have to hit this dude. And it's like, Noah Sewell is fearless, right? Like, Noah Sewell makes that hit. Justin Flo would enthusiastically make that hit.
So what you're saying is Bossa Nova.
Oh boy,
that's good.
He does
That's
go.
good.
He hesitates a little bit.
Hey
Kalani is actually a very smart kid, but he just, he's a walk-on for a reason. He's just isn't, his footwork is not perfect. He just isn't like the most fluid and natural athlete, and so I see problems with that. Although I was a little weirded out why he wasn't started, and I was a little weirded out why Keith Brown wasn't starting. Brown's going to be really good. He just needs a little more time. And they were also sort of the other nice thing about this was they were, like I was mentioning with Adrian Jackson, he was at times, when they sort of would spin down a backer, they'd spin down a safety and they move an inside backer up to the line, and they move Jackson back out to play like a quasi ILB, and he actually didn't do half a bad job. It's not exactly his natural position. He's a little too long for it. ILBs need to be a little squatter, but they're, I guess I'd put it this way. They are aware that it's a problem. They're not, I have seen Duck coaching staffs in the past just be in total denial of this type of problem and are like, no, we'll just put on the 5'10" walk on. He's fine. We're not going to change up anything at all. We're not going to experiment. He's the next man up, and next man up is our motto at Oregon. And that's that. Like, no, that's not what I'm seeing. Like, I'm definitely seeing, let's rotate some guys through. Let's keep these dudes fresh. Let's try new things. Like, they're aware it's a problem, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a problem.
Well, there you go. I honestly don't have too much to say about this game. It was another kind of hard watch, but it was like a horror movie sequel. Like, I had already seen it, so kind of the steam was taken out a little bit. And I mean, it's not even a horror movie because it's got a happy ending. We won the ducking game.
I gotta say, like, I was right. Where I was sitting was right in front of that 8-play goal line stand. They had that magical conversion. Yeah, because it went to 4th down, and then Garbers had that miracle, flip while he was being sacked. So then Oregon had to do another 4 downs. It was right in front of me, and my heart was in my and the relief at the end when that ball fell short and there were no flags this time. It was just like I was jumping and like I don't. I was screaming like and
you're a very reserved individual.
I don't get to feel stuff like that very often.
I will say, like,
unique experiences. I wish everybody could have been in the stadium to feel it with me.
That's the tough part, reading about so much of the negativity, and I should probably just not read it. But it's just like, if you're a Duck fan and like you're watching this game, and parts of it have been a little tough offensively, but you watch that goal line stand, and your immediate and you watch the win, and your immediate response is to go online and be like, this team fucking sucks. Mario Cristobal can own recruit. Like, I just don't know what you're getting at. And I mean, I guess that's what the internet is for. But,
I think I've learned this though, maybe too.
What's that?
If that is your if that's your response, then you are a newer Duck fan than I am, because them always letting you down is the average. So to be mad when we win and do good is ridiculous.
I've been a Ducks fan long enough so that I definitely remember when every win was precious and kind of a surprise.
Right.
I mean, I don't say any of these things to sort of excuse the performance. I think this team has real problems. I think, there are some serious stuff to correct. And
I think we could lose to absolutely anybody on our schedule.
Sure. I think I actually think this team is better managed than most people appreciate. There's sort of a basic professionalism to their conduct, which I don't see in most other Pac-12 teams. And I don't know, while the execution is often not there, and there's this penalty stuff is really driving me up the wall, and there's the sort of the God hates the Ducks factor, which always every time Cal needed a break, they somehow got it. How interesting. Just like how Stanford, whenever they needed a break, they somehow got it. Hey, isn't that kind of weird? And it's kind of difficult to avoid seeing conspiracy theories and that sort of stuff or whatever, but and then barring think about all the crazy shit that had to happen for Stanford to win that game, right? That was far from inevitable, right? That exact sequence of events had to happen. That exact set of ref assistants had to happen, for them to win that game, because Oregon, despite the punch in the balls that they delivered to themselves in the first half, and kind of similarly in this game, despite the punch in the balls that they had delivered themselves with all those dumb incomplete passes out of Brown, they were still in control of the game, because fundamentally, like I've been saying on this podcast all year long, if you can run the ball, it is the ultimate security blanket. They play fundamentally sound defense, and their strategy to keep you out of the end zone basically works. It's often sort of panic inducing, but barring complete weirdness like the end of the Stanford game, they are effectively in control of every game that they play. The other reason being because they have a talent advantage on everybody. That's the other thing that's sort of it's very obvious. When there's a couple of plays in which Kayvon Thibodeau, 5-star, and Noah Sewell, 5-star, are attacking Cal's 1 4-star and mostly 3-star line, and they cut through them like a hot knife through butter. And
Thibodeau was truly amazing to see how much difference a person can make. And not only that, but I think it was also clear both lines in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter, began to just really dominate Cal. They were really wilting at the end there. And that's been something you've seen in most of our games.
There's not a game on Oregon's schedule in which I wouldn't take Oregon's line versus the opposing line on both sides of the ball. It's a good advantage to have. Does that mean that they will automatically win every game? No, certainly not. There's more to football than that, but it's a very good first, it's the first step, if you are ahead in the trenches, then you are 60% of your way to winning a game.
Well, let me ask you this the other day. What's up with all the penalties?
I really don't have a good answer for that. It is a mix of
bad attitudes.
I don't think that's it. I think that there are, a couple of them are, these are very, talented, coached up dudes who are aggressive and want to make a play. And, they're just
too hype.
Yeah, you're too hyped up or hitting too hard or just doing something that there's an old, I don't know if it's a cliche or it could be apocryphal, but that there are some penalties that coaches are okay with because they're penalties of aggression, and they'd rather see you showing too much aggression than too little aggression. And
Interesting.
I see some of that. I'm not trying to like apologize for penalties here, but I am saying that like, uh,
They're not.
it's sort of the risk you run when you've got, it's like overclocking your computer. Like, yeah, you're going to risk, some damage to your computer, but you're also getting way better performance out of it. And how do you balance that? Well, by taking that risk.
I think it's like the targeting called on Thibodeau, which it's like, some people would be like, yes, that was definitely targeting. He hit the head and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, clearly he wasn't actually going for that, but it'd be like to teach him not to just go all out like that, would hurt your team so much
yeah,
more.
Right. It's sort of
once
like,
in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you going to, in order, if you come to the conclusion that avoiding that 15-yard penalty in one game causes you to give up an extra 80 yards because of lack of aggression, like, okay,
Right.
like, now I'm not saying that it's as stark of a trade-off as that. No one gets to live in the counterfactual, no one gets to hop between universes and see, which one it worked out in. But like, there's a calculation to be made about how much aggression that you want your guys to have. So some of it is sort of like, I'm not saying that it's good, but I am saying it's sort of to be expected. I mean, it's not like there's any team in the history of football who's finished a game with 0 penalty yards.
Right. They'd rather see the penalty happen than the other team score or something.
And sometimes they're just jackasses.
And you're talking about 19-year-old college kids who sometimes do dumb stuff, and it's just like there's only so much you can do as a coaching staff to keep a 19-year-old who's full of adrenaline, testosterone from
who you're pumping
stuff.
up. Who Aaron Feld
I mean,
is screaming in his
even on the NFL level, there are you see the penalties happen where you can tell the person they're so inside the moment that they forget about all the nuance of what a ref is going to be looking at.
There's 2 other things. One is a couple of them are deserved because the dude got beat. It's just straight up, like, you were asking me this way back in 2018 when I was like, why are all these penalties? And I was like, well, a good deal of it is because the play was not good. And many penalties are like, if you're an offensive tackle and you get beat around the edge and your quarterback is about to get sacked, then you should hold that dude and take the 10-yard penalty. It's better than your quarterback getting hit.
Right.
So there's a couple like that where it's just like, what we've been talking about this whole time about, like, this team is far from perfect. Some of it stems from less than perfect play. And, that's what happens when you get beat, is sometimes you have to hold, or sometimes you have to commit pass interference or something like that. And then the third thing is they've had unusually poor luck with Pac-12 refs, and like, we probably don't need to talk any more about that, but I think I will say, on balance, I think that the refs have usually it all balances out by the end of the year, and it will probably be the case to balance the scales that Oregon will get the happy side of certain officiating calls in the second half of the season, and that this will feel like a foolish comment to be complaining about now. But 6 games in, it's probably been the case that the refs have been not as kind to Oregon as the law of averages would indicate.
It's totally, I believe that, especially now that money has entered into this game on a player level.
Now that it's, okay.
I do believe there's some level of control happening at the top.
Oh boy.
Because one, you want people to watch your football game so you can sell ads, and so you want to keep the game exciting. And so I do believe there is some official manipulation inside each games to create a more exciting level of play.
They would never go for the Stanford fan base because that does not exist. So that kind of throws. But we'll keep an eye on that conspiracy, because
just think of it like wrestling, but on a very, very light level.
I mean, for years you've said that this whole thing is fake. Actually, too.
Oh, it's
I
totally
don't know if
rigged,
you
bro.
remember that. You've said
Until
every
I'm in
single
a
game is
stadium,
rigged.
it's
See
AI.
if
Hythloday could be AI. We've never seen this fool's face.
That's true.
I did want to know, like, what I want to know is, okay, so in the Oregon State versus USC game, when Oregon State was constantly getting flagged, and it was, clearly like, the Beavers can't be allowed to win against the Trojans.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
ridiculous. Like, when does that start happening for Oregon? When does the front office recognize that this is the face of the league and that those calls start going Oregon's way? That's
when
what I
Nike
wanna know.
removes itself from the team's funds.
Yeah, right.
Or
Like,
when
it's so,
USC removes itself from Pac-12, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
it's so funny to listen to a particular podcast, which is hosted by a certain, LA-based couple of hosts who you have been saying that the front office should be putting their thumb on the scale for the conference front runners, right? Like to assist those teams to get to the playoffs, because a rising tide will sink all, will raises all ships, right? But then as soon as it became, it's like, it's funny how, you were saying that when you thought the LA schools were going to be the primary beneficiaries, but now that it's Oregon, I don't really hear much of that. I hear a lot of pointing and laughing at Oregon when flags go against Oregon. Gosh.
Right.
They hate us because they ain't us. Okay. Any final thoughts on this game? Quick final thoughts. If you use old references, we do have some fans who have been loving. I think Hythloday mentioned maybe Max Headrom or something.
Oh,
I don't
boy.
even know that
Oh,
reference.
Adam, don't act like you don't know. You're on the
I
internet.
truly don't know. And I mentioned Carol Burnett, stuff like that. Earlier the better. Any final thoughts in this game?
I should make an I Love Lucy, the licorice episode.
If you can work
in
it
terms
in.
of how the run game was working. I can. I do think that. I still think that, we were talking about after the Stanford game that the coaches should be considering making a quarterback, replacement. And like, while I think that this was a better performance out of Anthony Brown and that he's sort of back to the Ohio State form, it's still not optimal and it's still probably not playoff caliber. And that, people shouldn't be making stuff up. Like no one's entitled to their own facts, and you should have an honest assessment of his performance. But I believe that an honest assessment of his performance is that, this dude still clearly got a ceiling. And that, I still think it's probably the case that as soon as Ty Thompson is ready, so that his error rate is comparable to Anthony Brown's error rate, but his ceiling is much higher, that I don't think that Oregon should be afraid to make the switch. We've seen a lot of teams this year make the switch, with positive results.
Oklahoma's
Utah made
the big one. Everyone's
Oklahoma, Utah.
Yeah.
Wazoo went back to Delora. The list goes on. Like, you should not be afraid to make the switch out of sentimentality or out of, fear or whatever. You should make a rational calculus. And I can't perform that calculus because I don't know how Ty Thompson's performing in practice. But, there's just no way to read the minds of the coaches. But I guess if anybody was thinking themselves, I haven't looked on Twitter, so I don't know what people are thinking. If people are thinking themselves, this game proves that this coaching staff will never make the switch, because if there was a time to do it, it was now, and they didn't do it, and so therefore they never will. I guess my response would be, I don't think that's necessarily true. I still think that that's on the table. And I still think that the way the calculation goes is they're just waiting for Ty Thompson to improve enough in practice for the tipping point on the scales to be achieved. And so I still don't think, I said this going into the season, that I thought that Anthony Brown would get them through the Ohio State game, but that by the end of the year, they would probably make the switch. And I still think that's on the table. And that this game doesn't disprove that.
Doesn't it become harder, though, with every game that passes to make a switch with every week? Right? Doesn't it seem, because the more time that Anthony Brown is on the field with the team, the stronger that connection inside the team is becoming? Maybe.
I kind of think that's probably maxed out. That I don't know how much more of a connection he could form with the team. On the other hand, I don't think Ty Thompson is maxed out in terms of his his floor. Like that's probably going up every week because this is the time, in a new recruit, because he got on campus. He's a true freshman, right? This is between now and about halfway through his sophomore year is the fastest growth time in a quarterback's, period. And so literally week to week, he's probably becoming better. And at some point, I can't guarantee that'll be the case, but at some point you'll reach the tipping point where he's a better option. And I guess all I can say is I hope the coaching staff is rational about it and realizes when that it happens and makes the switch. And I don't think there's anything that happened in this game that makes me say, well, now that definitely won't happen.
Week one of the playoffs. That's when it'll happen.
Week one of the playoffs.
I mean, Ohio State made the switch to Cardale Jones for that,
Yes.
Oregon paid the price.
Yes, I do remember that. Well, and also just look at last season. I mean, it was technically game 6 or 7 for the Ducks, but they did incorporate Anthony Brown in some pretty crucial time, like late in the season, and he was the backup quarterback. So maybe they just like to see, the week of practice. And I mean, just like Harold Lloyd's 1925, the freshman, sometimes it just takes you a little while to learn football. You know what I mean? Let's get in to one of our
stretch
segments. I couldn't think of any reference. I was like, I saw that movie.
I've got one. I haven't really been on social media, and I know that people are probably screaming, about a million different things. And my job as a film reviewer is, they're running around and not able to see the cliff in the middle of the rye field, and my job is to catch them and keep them from going over that cliff. So I'm the Holden Caulfield of Oregon Twitter.
A little too literary for me, but yeah.
Here's what I'm going to do as a little bit of a throwback. I'm going to ask all of our beloved fans to whoever has video editing skills. I'd love to see a compilation of all of Travis Dye's runs from this previous game set to the music of Benny Hill.
There's a lot of them. He carried the ball a lot in this game. That'd be a long video.
I think that would be really fun.
I guess it makes sense as in you want to incorporate anyone where it's like a golden bear looks especially foolish not tackling him or something too. I think that would really help.
Well, read my article Tuesday morning. I'll have a couple.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, you got a video of him with the Benny Hill music. Great, we did it.
Speaking of Benny Hill, let's talk about these other jokers in the Pac-12 in our annual or weekly segment.
Bottom 11.
That's right. It's the bottom 11. And we here at the Quack 12 podcast still believe that we are number one. I think it's pretty clear. A lot of people are down on the Ducks now. A little off because Aaron, we had some big games here. Well, let's start. Obviously, Ducks beat the Golden Bears 24-17. It was awesome. Kind of, especially at the end. Then on Saturday, the real events began, and Aaron, holy hell.
I don't know nothing about nothing. So let's break me in.
So Arizona versus Colorado. This is last week we were saying both of these teams are terrible, bad. Who's worse? Who knows?
Let me guess. It was 86-74.
Well, I mean, that's a guess. And then there was Hythloday thought it was just going to be Colorado's going to get one defensive touchdown. It'll be 7-0. Actually, Colorado showed up, and they showed up big against a team that Oregon really had to take down in the fourth quarter. It was a close one at Autzen. Colorado defends their home turf 34-0.
Now, hold on 1 second, Adam.
Okay, let's hear it.
The first 20 points that Colorado scored were not offensive touchdowns.
Which is nuts.
Two field goals, and then 2 field goals, a punt block return for a touchdown, and a defensive touchdown. In other words, exactly what I said.
That's exactly 7-0, but pretty damn. I mean, it's what you said, but a more dramatic version of it.
Way juicier version.
Just a beat down. I guess it's good.
Not just as Jordan McLeod out, who was that was the key to why they played Oregon tough. But the Gunnar Cruz is now out too. So they are down to Yeah, no, he's out. He
Dear
threw a
Lord.
pick six in this game, like 2 plays after he tore his thumb and didn't tell the coaches about it. Yeah. So yeah, they're down to Will Plummer is their only scholarship quarterback, and they have 2 walk-ons. Oh yeah, they had a third walk-on who's also out for the season.
Oh,
It's just
man,
it's
Gonzos.
absolutely like to the point where I don't like. I think that a moratorium ought to be declared for making fun of Arizona. Like what's happening to them is just so awful. Like
Yeah, it's brutal. They suck, but and
So they
lose
still have won
34-0
0 games?
yes,
in
they haven't
couple
won a
of
game
seasons.
going back to 2019.
Right. Ooh.
They're
Their
on, I
last
think, an
win was
18
against
game.
Colorado.
Yeah, they're on an 18 game losing streak.
You don't want to be on that team right now, that's for sure.
I mean, honestly, the fact that they're playing as hard, like I've watched them in the
Yeah.
last couple of games, like that they're playing as hard as they are is remarkable. Like I mean, their culture is way better than USC's culture. Like
Yeah.
USC didn't play this week, but you see them the last time they played against Utah, that team's quit.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Harsh words, bro.
No, they
I don't
quit,
think I'm
man.
being harsh at all. I think that
I think-
USC has clear. I think if you ask USC fans, they'll tell you the same thing that team's quit, and Arizona hasn't quit. Like, and USC has way more to play for than Arizona does. So, like, that's a way better testament to the Jed Fish's culture.
True. I mean, they ain't quit. That's for sure. Despite again 0 points.
My Texas Trojans?
Texas Trojans will get it. Not this week. No, not this week.
They've played 3 home games and gotten blown out all 3 times.
Yeah,
Bummer.
Aaron, they ain't good. They bad, and they've definitely.
And I put all my chips on them.
Well,
that's my second favorite team.
Up next, Washington State versus Stanford. This one was a barn burner.
Yeah, this was actually pretty. It was an interesting game to watch. I won't say it's a good game because I don't really think these teams are very good, but it went back and forth. And because we all knew that Nick Rolovich was getting fired, it was going from the like the hilarious Stanford beats you when you get fired, like Clay Helton did, to the Nick Rolovich wins and then gets fired.
Yeah,
like, I don't know which one of those is funnier, but
I will say, I like if he wasn't, making the life decisions that he's choosing, whatever. But I would think if I was a Coug fan, I would be pretty excited for what I'm seeing on the field this season.
Dude went out on a 3-game winning streak, and like you can pin a lot of the problems that they had in the first part of the season to not playing Delora, which I don't really understand that situation. Actually, when we talk to Jeff Nusser, I'm gonna have to ask him about it. But like, I think Delora was injured, but I also think sometimes he wasn't injured and he was just in the doghouse. I don't really understand that. But like, dude goes out on a 3-game winning streak.
Yeah. Maybe he'll work in the South. But 34-31. Washington State ends up winning this one after Stanford rallied back. Thanks to some stuff.
Well, Stanford's discovered a couple other receiving options. Like I was saying a little while ago that Stanford only does one thing well of the 4 quadrants of football, which is passing the ball, and half of that went away when Bryson Tremaine was injured in the Oregon game. But they have found a couple of other options in the last couple of games. So like I'm back on even though they lost this game, I'm back on the Stanford is not going to be a super embarrassing loss by the end of the year. I think they're gonna. I think you can make the argument that Tanner McKee's the best quarterback in the Pac-12. He's got some good receivers. If they could just play some defense and learn to run the ball at all, they could win some games.
But Cougs get him this time, and it was really back and forth. Like Stanford, I believe did they take the lead and then.
Yes.
No, they tied it, or I'm trying.
It was Wazoo was up, and then Stanford got the lead, and then Wazoo had the final score.
It was a good one. I did enjoy that game actually. I kind of watched the perfect moments of it. I came in and out of it, but I watched like the final quarter, so that was fun. Then this bad boy, I was really watching UCLA versus Washington. Like not a fun game per se to watch per se, but because you knew it was going to hurt a team that I don't know that I wanted to watch lose, especially Washington. I really didn't want Washington to win because I didn't want them to elevate to a more not a shitty looking team right now, and it was close, but The
Well, the
Bruins
margin
pulled
of
off.
victory is a touchdown that they shouldn't have given UCLA.
Yeah.
They went for it on 4th down on the goal line. He was clearly stopped, and the refs weren't blowing the whistle.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was weird as hell.
I mean,
I
who
would be
knows
pretty pissed.
what would have happened in overtime? But like, yeah, no, I thought it was a pretty ugly game.
Yeah,
and-
and then there was that deep pick, I believe, that was really late. That really
Yeah.
sealed the win for him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Dylan Morris is not a good quarterback. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can't run the ball, and
They can't run the ball, and they can't seemingly stop the run all that well either. And that's
and like Dorian Thompson-Robinson like flips a coin to determine whether or not he can pass before any given game. He was like half the time he can't, and half the time he can. And yeah, no, I think both of these teams have a ton of problems. To be honest, and the fact that the score was identical to the Oregon Cal score is pretty funny too. Like for everybody who's like, oh man, Oregon beat a bad Cal team only by 7 points, and then UCLA, the triumphant heroes who beat a bad Washington team by the exact same score. Like, okay,
yeah,
give them game day.
Yeah. It was nuts. I was glad to see Washington lose. There you go, in Seattle. And then the final game of the night, there was, a lot of heat coming with those Sun Devils. Really a lot of talk about the Pac-12 South champ. They're going against the Utah Utes. A lot of hatred between these teams. ASU actually got off to a pretty prominent lead, like 21-7 or something like that. A dominant lead.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden,
they figured that was enough points.
Yeah, Utah.
They're like, we're good.
How about we run the damn ball? And they began to do that, and then they scored goddamn 28 unanswered points to close out the game. So they win 35-21 in a crucial game for them to try to win the Pac-12 South, and also takes ASU out of any kind of playoff talk that there was. Not like people care about ASU, but if there was that talk, no longer there anymore. And Utah is, you got to feel proud if you're a Utah fan that they are looking much better. They look more like a Utah-y team. Cam Rising isn't sucking. I don't know. He's looking all right, and the run game's coming along, and yeah, that's got to feel good for Utah.
It's just such a funny reversal at halftime. Like,
yeah.
And like, I noted this last week when Arizona State played Stanford that like, oh yeah, the final score was, I believe, 28-10. Arizona State only scored 3 offensive touchdowns. Their last one was a pick 6, and their third offensive touchdown was with 10 minutes and change remaining in the second quarter. Like they just stopped scoring points after, pretty early. And like the same thing happened with Utah. It's like they jump out, they get 21 points, and then they're like, that's it, we're done. We don't need to score anymore. And like Stanford obliged them by punting constantly in their territory, and Utah did not do that,
Yeah.
Like there's really only one difference between the Arizona State's performance against Stanford versus Utah, and it's that Utah had decided to play offense in the second half, and Stanford decided to punt a bunch, like and throw a pick 6. Although frankly, all 3 of those interceptions that Tanner McKee threw were like crazy circus catches again, in that game last week. So like, man, I don't know, like, yeah, no, I'm sort of like been flagging all along, like this Arizona State team is fundamentally flawed in a lot of ways. And like Utah took advantage of all of them in the second half. I don't know. I found that kind of gratifying, even though I'm not an Arizona State hater or anything. I promise that I'm not, but it's just like these flaws have been obvious for a long time. And to finally see a coach who was good enough to take advantage of them was like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah, boy.
I will say I constantly think, because I think their style of play is pretty similar. I think if Jaden Daniels was on UCLA, they'd be better for it.
Yeah.
Maybe they should do a trade. Now here we go.
Honestly, Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Jaden Daniels are not that different. Like they're they're constantly scrambling. Like that's the thing that same with Chase Garbers. Like frankly, any team that I watch in which I'm charting, a higher than 20% sack scramble throwaway rate, I'm like, you're making this work despite your offensive line. Like, you are going to get in trouble when someone can contain you. And fans all go nuts fans love it when they see a scrambling quarterback and they don't realize what a trap that is.
I get it. I mean, Vernon Adams Jr. is one of my favorite experiences of all time. But then you look at it's because the offense isn't keeping him there because I don't know, because he didn't have.
Well, at least he was throwing the ball. Like,
receivers.
Vernon Adams is kind of the exception, because when he would scramble, he'd throw the ball.
He'd throw the ball deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
would still, I mean, that's what I was saying. Remember we were talking to Rob Wong about, Garbers, where it's like the dude is very effective scrambling, but the problem is he's only picking up 8-9 yards when he scrambles. He's not doing what the offense needs him to, which is to throw 40-yard passes. First of all, Vernon Adams was doing that. So I guess he's the exception, but the rest of these guys too, whenever I'm charting a scramble rate that high, it's like you go to your favorite restaurant and one time they screw up your order and they bring you banana pancakes instead of the steak that you ordered. But it's ooh, actually banana pancakes are really fun. Oh, what a fun, happy accident this was. Yum, 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 banana pancakes. If that happens once, what a cute, fun story.
It sounds like your favorite restaurant is IHOP.
But if that happens every time you order, or even frankly, more than once, you should stop going to that restaurant. It means that something is seriously wrong with the kitchen.
Or sometimes it's you go to a restaurant and you keep changing your order, like Lucy does in that episode when Fred and
here we go,
Ricky all go. Now the great Quack 12 pickoff between Aaron and I need
to call timeout real quick.
Oh, let's hear it. What's
Hythloday, you were there.
Okay.
I thought I picked Wazoo and Adam picked Stanford.
Oh boy, I'm sorry, I don't remember, Aaron.
I just listened to it to make this, and unless you want to prove it by doing some research before the show.
No, I don't care.
Okay, well, I knew I got you there. I always
all I know is y'all was trying to tell me it was going to be one team, and I explicitly picked the other.
Yeah.
So maybe this is right.
Well,
I mean, I remember I said I thought that Wazoo was a better team.
Well, we should have gone with Hyth then. Well, let's hear. So both of us chose Oregon. Both of us chose Colorado. I went with Wazoo. You went with Stanford. I went with UCLA. You went with Washington. I went with ASU. You went with Utah. As you
kind of a wash. Swing in Adam's favor.
Yeah. ASU out. I got that one wrong. And on the other hand, two wrong. Stanford and Washington, wrong picks.
But Aaron's still up by a point, isn't he?
Still up. Well, and overall, not only that, I've lessened the lead, but still Aaron has a 2-point lead ahead of me. So we'll see, Aaron. This could be another win. Another win for someone
a lady tonight
who barely watches college football, but still manages to pick better than me. Speaking of that, the picks.
I love that one.
I know, it's spooky. It's Halloween themed. I know it isn't. The picks, Aaron and I, we're going to make picks. Hythloday is going to weigh in on these bad boys. We got another week of Pac-12 football. I do believe so someone's on a bye. I don't know who, but we've got some non-Pac-12 teams in here, Aaron. So get ready for that.
Oh.
Starting October 22nd, 7:30. So Friday, 7:30 p.m. on ESPN2, Washington versus Arizona. Oh, wait, is that Washington versus Arizona?
Going with the Huskies all day.
No. That's Washington at Arizona. So that is in the desert. In the desert.
Huskies all day, baby.
You're going with the Huskies.
I'm anti-Arizona, Adam.
That's right. I got to say, I do agree with Hythloday been saying is that you actually do got to give this Wildcat team some credit, because when you're this bad, but still they're showing up.
They could just be like, we're done with football this season, y'all.
Yeah, or just you can tell from body language, and that's real, of just that person doesn't care to block right now compared to attempting to block or attempting to tackle and just getting wiped out or whatever it is. But there's just a few too many injuries. Washington still has a few or at least a couple units that should dominate this game, that should put it in their favor. I don't think it's I don't know. It could actually, unfortunately, be even a blowout too. Also, another thing is they're looking at like, we've got to get our wins where we can get them. So this is got to be like, I don't know. Jimmy Lake is sweating this one still because he's got to get it. And it's in the desert. We all know crazy stuff happens.
Friday night game in the desert with the Pacific Northwest team. Like all signs are pointing to Washington dropping.
It would be their first win since, forever.
But then Arizona can't. I mean, they just can't.
They just can't. I'm going with that. Yeah.
It's so brutal.
It's really tragic. I mean, if Arizona won this game, like Montana beating Washington almost killed me. Like the sheer joy and Schadenfreude, like almost just stopped my heart. If Arizona wins this game, that might be it. This might be the last time you ever talk to me. Like
Hythloday dead.
Hythloday dead.
Hythloday dead. We're gonna bury him in Tucson. I guess that's what he wants. I don't know. Let's see. After that, basically a Pac-12 team. BYU, well, basically a Big 12 team. BYU going to Pullman to take on Washington State at 12:30 p.m. Washington Cougs versus Cougs. Who got a classic Coug fight? BYU.
A double Coug?
You got a double Coug here.
Well, then that makes my choice easy. I'm going with the Cougs.
Oh, Aaron. No. Aaron. So BYU has beaten 3 Pac-12 teams already, which is that more than Washington State? I don't know. But BYU has beaten Arizona State. They've beaten Arizona, and then they played somebody else, and I am not remembering. Hythloday, who is that third team they've already beaten?
The
UCLA.
BYU's played Utah.
Yeah. In Utah, I forgot about that.
Right,
yeah, that was
Utah
a big
game.
one. The Holy War. Yeah. So they've already beaten 3 Pac-12 teams. They were actually really starting to rank up. Then they got back-to-back losses.
Ooh.
So now, my man, meanwhile, Washington State trending upwards. However, their coach literally just got fired.
Their coach and half the staff. I don't believe they have a single person left on the team who has play calling experience.
So
you're kidding me.
Yeah, they promoted the DC who actually to be the head coach. But Rolovich and the co-OC / quarterback coach were let go, and the offensive line coach, who I believe was the only other guy who had play calling experience. It's like, yeah, man, it could be bad.
Yeah,
well, I guess I got to go with BYU on this one then.
Yeah, that really paints a picture, doesn't it? BYU.
It makes it hard to think that they have a shot at all.
I'd hate to go with it too, but I'm also going with it BYU, unfortunately. It'd be fun if Washington State won. It'd be so weird if they were the first Pac-12 team. BYU will take on the Trojans later, I do believe.
Yeah, it's their last game, actually.
That's so weird. And then we've got Colorado versus Cal. Oh, sorry, at Cal. Colorado at Cal. The exact same time, 12:30 p.m. They do not want anyone to watch these games.
These are 2 shit teams playing each other, it sounds like.
Yes. I don't know why that made me laugh so hard, but yes.
I think Cal's going to take this one, though.
I mean, both of them have been like Colorado. When they get their asses kicked, they really get their asses kicked. But then they kick ass when they kick ass. California has been close in like every single damn game. Yeah, it's hard to say. We just saw Chase Garbers. It's looking pretty decent. Not looking like Chase Garbage.
It's funny that you say that. I've been doing film study on Chase Garbers for 4 years, and the first article that I ever wrote about him, I included a clip that was like, because he was a kid, at the time. And I was like, this is a play that a smarter dude with more field awareness would know he's supposed to, go here and then throw it away to conserve time. And then he doesn't. And then I watched in this game almost the exact same play happen, and he did the smart veteran quarterback thing.
Hey.
And I was like, oh, our little Chase is grown up.
Yeah.
Oh.
I do like Chase Garbage. I mean, I feel for him at least. Like,
Hythloday, where do you put this game?
Oh, I think Cal wins.
Okay, good. Then I'm glad I picked Cal. I'm going with Cal.
Fuck it, I'm going Colorado. This is where I'm backing my buff, man. I think that ass kicking of Arizona is exactly what they needed. I think it's gonna be a close game, actually, because
I think it's going to be too close for us to actually need to pick it. I don't think we should pick this one.
No, you pick Cal. So
Okay.
I'm going with Colorado. And then once again at 12:30 p.m., making it basically impossible to watch all of these Pac-12 games unless you really want to do the research. Number 10, Oregon on ABC versus UCLA. I believe this is game day, baby. This is ESPN
Game day at the Rose Bowl.
day. In the Rose Bowl. Doesn't get more Pac-12 than this. It's wonderful. God, I hope we win this game. This game has been circled on the calendar, even though UCLA, I feel like going into this season, some people were hot on them, but they probably didn't expect them to even be where they're at right now. But people were still being like, out of all the Pac-12 losses, I think this could be one of them.
No way.
You don't think we're going to lose?
I don't think that potato chip of a head coach has the first clue on how to take us down, Adam. It's Oregon by a mile.
Chip Kelly has never beaten the Oregon Ducks.
Look, that man is a bag of ruffles walking around.
Oh, man. Oh, my. Well, our former coach, no respect.
I don't know why I'm so hot on him, but I just feel like it's funny.
You beat red like a cherry tomato yourself.
Yeah.
Number 10, Oregon versus UCLA. We're still top 10 team apparently. I think this game, I'm trying to think if could this possibly be one of those games where Cristobal is like, hey, it's LA, recruiting opportunity. This is what they pay me for. Time to go and just blow the doors out of UCLA. Like this is, we're waiting for the big team and we go against them. I think not. I think this will be exactly the game we've been seeing over and over and over. And I think the Ducks win. I do think they win by stopping the final drive from UCLA. And they're going to win this bad boy 31-28. With of Verone McKinley interception. That'll be the thing that
you may not be far off.
I think that's exactly what it's going to be.
I think it'll be 28-21.
Ducks. Yeah.
Ducks.
That game would hurt me. But if we win, what the fuck do I care?
I do think this one's decided by the turnovers. Like Oregon's due for a turnover. Like they I don't think they've gotten any in the last two games, and like
not the last two.
Here's the random prediction I'm going to make because it's a Hollywood story. But our sweet little puppy, Mr. Lewis, will kick a record distance field goal.
Well, like college or program?
Personal.
He booted a long one against Cal.
He did. And I think he's going to get longer.
I'm now for, and like, I don't want to be stupid and be like, oh, we should have kicked a field goal in the first half against Stanford, and we should have cooked a field goal against, against Cal earlier. But I would like to see Camden, more of a every once in a while settling in for, let's get some points on the board, because Camden Lewis has been pretty freaking impressive, which is surprising because it's like
I'm stunned.
Henry Cattleman all the way.
Dude, the Cowboy was my number one guy.
Yeah, honestly.
Forever. And then they just didn't put him on the field anymore.
And we were done with Camden
Lewis. And Mr. Lewis is actually playing like a football player.
He's playing like the person we hear he is in every practice report.
Right. It's stunning. I'm glad that I was wrong about him.
Can you imagine if we got to see him in the NFL? That would be me feeling like a proud papa, but it'd be like I was a bad dad because I talked a lot of shit about him.
So much shit. We talked so much shit. I feel terrible, and that's why I'm putting all of my faith into him now.
Yeah,
I have to counteract that terrible amount of negativity I was spewing last year.
There was a point where we were on the goddamn 5-yard line, and he just needed to hit the field goal for the win, and I was sweating bullets like he was about to attempt a 60-yard.
I mean, we got so bad, I refused to call him by his real name.
Yeah. Or you forgot. Yeah.
But now I'm full team. I'm full team.
I think the Ducks are going to win, but this really is, who knows? You could completely see it either way. It's really which program you think is better suited right now, who will be better suited. And I do think Cristobal's got a more stable thing going than Chip Kelly. So
here's what I think is interesting. The line opened up as Oregon -2, and it's been bet down to UCLA -3, like 5-point swing, which is classic public overreaction. Like that's classic. Oregon was touted as a playoff team, and they've looked a little shaky. Meanwhile, UCLA has looked dead for 3 years under Chip Kelly, and now they look okay. And so therefore people like extend those lines farther than the dots actually are, and they have them crossing. This is a classic fade the public situation. Fade the public, bet on Oregon. Or don't bet, it's morally wrong and foolish, but Oregon's going to win.
But if you do bet, go to my bookie, type in Quack 12 podcast. I don't think that works anymore, but it may, and maybe it'll get us some money. So USC versus, I keep saying versus, USC at Notre Dame. This is supposedly what college football is all about. This game, every year we're forced to watch this terrible game, and USC year after year for the recent past has lost it. I think they won a couple of years back. I kind of forget, but they've looked pretty terrible, most of them. Technically number 13 Notre Dame, but their offensive line is with Swiss cheese. They got a Jack Cohn, the quarterback for he was on Wisconsin when we played him in the Rose Bowl. That quarterback. He's now over on Notre Dame, and they've just looked like a troubled team for number 13 anyways. USC, very talented, but has quit. Just like us, they've mailing it in. We meet every week, but we just go through the motions. Our heart's not really into it. Who are you going with, my man? Pac-12 or
wait? But you all said USC is terrible.
Yeah, they are.
But Notre Dame is maybe not so great right now.
They're probably a shade under great, maybe a little further down. I mean, they've had some trouble with they've had a shootout with like Florida State early on. Some of their big wins are getting a little less and less impressive. Like
we're getting to the point in the competition where the choice becomes between sticking with my heart and gaining more points to stay ahead.
Capitalism.
If I choose my heart, then that means I got to go with my Texas Trojans. But if I want more points, I should probably pick Notre Dame. And you said that USC has lost multiple years in a row, but I still have good people down there. I'm going to pick USC to win this one.
Fool. You're a fool. I'm going to go like President Bartlett on the West Wing. God, I'm going to support.
It's not even that old. The West Wing is one of the worst shows I've ever seen to talk about political anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty like good versus evil.
If you could say America has a form of propaganda, it's quite possible it's the West Wing.
Oh, I mean, West Wing is very, especially like, I don't want to get political.
Let's not even get into it. It's the worst show in the world. How dare you bring it up?
It gets pretty bad sometimes, especially when they're like actually solving problems. You're like, this isn't what Congress does. What the fuck is this? Like, president like not worshiping in some underground reptilian like chamber or something. It's like, this isn't realistic. I'm going with Notre Dame though. Absolutely. The Fighting Irish, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse or whatever they used to call those players back in the day. I'm going with Notre Dame. Absolutely. Fighting Irish. A mascot that may be deemed racist in the future, but that'll be deep in the future. So we'll be fine now.
Well, it's so entrenched in Boston, Irish. And Boston is so entrenched in its Irishness.
Well, really what it comes down to is like, if it's a white mascot, it's people it's not very racist.
I find more issue with the term Fighting Irish.
It's fighting exactly. You're like,
it's
all
that
those Irish
part of
fight.
it that I'm like, this is maybe not great.
I mean, if you put in any other person after thing,
think of it like this: replace Fighting Irish with the IRA.
Do
you still want to call it that?
I personally would think that'd be kind of cool, and maybe in an apocalyptic future that can be a football team.
Sunday, bloody Sunday. That'll be the team's new song.
That being said, Hythloday, you gonna back those Trojans?
Oh no, Notre Dame's won 7 of the last 10.
Dang it!
USC's quit.
Yeah.
See, I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I knew I was going to pick wrong.
They're out to lunch, but this game actually, this final game on the docket here, this is some scrappy players here. Now, this is the scrappy team from the South who just got a big old win, who may be leading the South now, versus a team that for a second was on top of the Pac-12 North, but suffered a pretty baffling loss to the Wazoo Cougs. Aaron, I'm talking about Utah, unranked Utah, going to Corvallis, Oregon, and taking on the Beavers, the unranked Beavers, at 4:30 p.m. at the exact same time.
And Beavers just came out of a bye, right?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. So
I think Utah's going to win it. I'm going with them Utes.
Going with the Utes. This is a tough one. This really is a tough one. I think Oregon State's ready to bounce back, just like I'm ready to bounce back in this competition. So I'm going to choose against you, and I'm going to back them Beaver boys.
Okay. Fair.
I think it should be a good game. I will probably, because if I have to choose, I'm going to try to, watch all the long recaps of all these games, but since apparently I have to choose, or I'll double screen it in reality, but I would probably go with the Utah-Oregon State game as full viewing big TV over the USC Notre Dame, because I think...
Would you go to a bar to watch it?
Yeah, I mean, right now, no, but well, actually, no. I prefer sitting on my couch with TVs, with free beverages and food and yeah.
Oh yeah, a bar's not really your scene anymore anyway, is it?
Well,
you're more of a tea and crumpets guy these days.
Even then, even when I was getting wasted on a regular basis, I wouldn't necessarily want to watch a game in a bar. I would rather watch it with friends at home.
Sure, totally.
Like that being said, I've had some good memories in a bar. One time I walked into a bar, it was like in Seattle, but it was a duck kind of bar, or like a duck watching center. And it was during a game. I want to say this was 2000, don't quite remember, but 2014 maybe, when we were playing against Utah, and I came in like halfway through the first quarter. They're just about to go up like 14-0 on us. Like I'm watching this guy break away, huge play, about to go score a touchdown. And right before he crosses the end zone, Aaron, he drops that ball on the 1 yard line, like celebration, when you're like, after
what a
you
dummy.
Cross the yeah. He drops it on the 1 yard line. The ref stands next to it, just looking at it, not saying anything. Like he's not tipping it off that it's a live ball, but he's just kind of standing there. And then a duck, you can kind of like see him like, wait, like look, like what's going on? The crowd is freaking out because they think they just scored a touchdown. Motherfucker grabs that ball, takes it 99 yards the other way. The Ducks tie it, and then really quickly after that, just a butt kicking to Utah.
Wow.
That was a great game to watch at a bar. So I've definitely had, or a World Cup. That's a fun thing to watch in a bar, something like that. But typically I'm on my butt. Yeah, I think I forget who my pick was. Oregon State Beavers. A little bit of a tangent there.
Hythloday, what say you?
Give me Utah. I like the Beavs, but I sort of think they're a mirage. I mean, they're two real wins. They beat Hawaii and Idaho. Who cares?
You were super hot on them just a couple of weeks ago. I feel like
I've always been higher on Oregon State than most people because I think that Jonathan Smith is one of the best coaches, in the league. I think he calls a really good offense, and I think that he manages his roster better than most. And so people who look at Oregon State's talent profile and say this team should win 2 games, I'm like, no way, he's way better than that. That doesn't mean that I think this is a phenomenal team. I think that Utah is simply a more complete team. And Oregon State's wins are over a USC team that's quit, and Washington, who also sucks. And I think that Utah doesn't exactly suck. So I think the line on this one is Utah -3, which for for, you know,
Wow.
it's a home game for Oregon State, which means that Vegas thinks that they're the 6 points better in a neutral field, which I think is about right. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon State won this game, but on balance, I think that Utah's just, you know, a little better.
Huh.
I get you.
Okay.
Well, there you have it. We'll see. There's a potential for maybe Aaron to pull ahead.
There's some shakeup happening this week, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like Geno Smith coming out there instead of Russell Wilson.
Like that one episode from that really old TV show where things got shaken up.
I think we really killed that bit. Yeah. But this has been the Quack 12 podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Quack 12 Podcast. And then, or you can find our friend here, Hythloday, who knows so much about the Ducks. Clearly, he's been watching all this stuff. You can find his articles, Duck Tape, on Addicted to Quack. Please check those out. Really good read, really good watch. And you can find him at Hythloday, the number 1, Hythloday, the number 1 on Twitter. And Hythloday, thanks for joining us as always.
My pleasure. Have a blessed Maulid.
Yeah. Oh, and I should say this. We are hoping, listeners, to get an interview later this week with a UCLA person, with someone who really knows the team.
So if you know a student,
yeah. I'm keeping it vague.
I hope our traditional guest isn't acting like a butt. He was kind of butt to me on his podcast.
Oh, well, but. Well, we're hoping to find someone to talk about UCLA, and that'll probably happen, or maybe we'll just have a discussion about it. Who knows? But so keep your eye on the feed for that, and go Ducks. I hope the next episode isn't a bummer one, but
nah.
we'll see. You think we're gonna win? We're gonna win 31-28.
Quack, quack.
Quack, quack.